you testified that one of the problems in getting people out of poverty is that they spend so much time and energy navigating public programs that they tend not to have energy or time to learn fiscal literacy to try to get out of poverty. So first, how did you come to this conclusion?
Well, we started this project about 3 to 4 years ago and really started to take some very close looks at what happens in the current system. And what we found was that our current system is really more a reaction to poverty. And once people go into using public assistance, their capacity is now used navigating the system to prove their neediness, which we think is a little bit backwards for what we say we want people to do, which is prepare themselves to become independent. So rather than spending their energy and time on the ways that you and I might think are best to get independent, saving more, earning more, making the right connections for a sustainable future, they spend their time navigating a very complex system.
Do you find that that's the case with both situational and generational poverty?
We didn't have a specific breakdown on those two different things, but once you enter the public assistance system, there are a variety of eligibilities, variety of different programs, whether it's around your health care, whether it's around your actual assistance money. I think those who enter in a situational situation, they may have more of an ability to figure out how they're going to move out of it more quickly. But we don't want more people getting trapped in a system that we think misuses their capacity.
So what kind of policies does Citizens League support when it comes to trying to get people out of poverty?
Well, right now what we're looking at is trying to establish 5 demonstrations with partners around Minnesota that we call family independence demonstrations. And what we want to do is we want to develop groups of families that work together, that set goals together, that are accountable for those goals they set, and support that much more directly with cash and with building up the type of networks they need to be independent. And rather than spending so much time navigating the current system, there are some things we'll need to change on the way to make that work.
What did you hear during the Ladder Out of Poverty Task Force that you liked, and what didn't you like?
Well, I don't know if there's anything I didn't like. What I did hear was that we have kind of growing momentum for financial literacy. We have some realizations going on that, you know, folks who have the capacity to be independent need some more tools. They need to not spend all their energy doing what we've currently got in the system. I think the next steps on that are still difficult because you can't just have financial literacy thrown out like a blanket for everyone. We have one idea. We'd like to work on some savings innovation products that would attract more people into a situation where financial literacy could then be part of what they get, financial education, to help them make good decisions. And that's one piece of legislation we'll be working on this session.
And are you speaking with people who are currently living in poverty as you craft these policies? Where do you get your information and your data?
Well, our information really started, we are a civic policy-making organization, and that means we have a fundamental belief that all people in organizations have a role in policy, and that if we want to reclaim our democracy, so to speak, we all need to realize that our decisions add up to policy every day. When we started this project, we realized that a committee wouldn't give us the information we needed. Our first guideline in our work is those impacted by a problem need help to find and solve the problem. So we did do a lot of reaching out, a lot of working with organizations who work directly with folks who are in poverty, but also having a lot of direct contact ourselves. And that's how we gathered our information to have the right kind of findings to lead us in a good direction on the policy.
And have you found, Bob, that your findings have changed perhaps recently because of the recession and more, the growth, the exponential growth in situational poverty as opposed to generational poverty? Has that really played into some of your policy crafting?
Not so much, because we're still looking at that existing system having the wrong incentives. So whoever gets into that system, we're concerned about. I do think there's some areas that with situational poverty we'd want to take a more closer look at. Our unemployment benefit system, for example, with a much larger sector of our economy moving to service-based, people who aren't eligible for unemployment benefits. So when they hit that bump on the road, do we want them to go into this public assistance system, or are there things we can do with some of our other systems that will just keep people out of that entirely?
So you're working with the Ladder Out of Poverty Task Force. And you discussed a little bit about some of the legislation that you would like to see forthcoming. Are there any other pieces that you think need to be included at this point?
Well, that's a very broad question. When you look at an issue like poverty, and let me say the reason our project is called Pathways to Prosperity is we think we need to have a vision of a whole system that supports prosperity rather than reacts to poverty. Once you go down that road, you find that these policies intersect with most other public policies that our government is involved in. So certainly the Ladder Out of Poverty Task Force has taken a particular bite of that, but the scope of the issues is much larger than what they're looking at right now.
And you just actually answered my next question, so I'm going to go to my last question for you. Do you think it is a realistic goal to eliminate poverty by 2020, if at all?
I understand being aspirational, and I think that was the goal of trying to eliminate poverty by 2020. I think eliminating it entirely is not realistic, but you need the goal to push you towards a constant ongoing improvement. So I certainly understand why that goal was laid out there. I think there's always going to be some people who are very dependent and have very complex situations. To keep them out of poverty is maybe a definition we haven't quite imagined yet. But I think that's why it's said that way, is we need to be aspirational, we need to push ourselves. So make the goal a stretch goal, if you will.
Bob DeBoer with the Citizens League, thank you so much for coming to the Capitol Report set and sharing your insight. We appreciate it.
Thank you, Julie.